I was going to leave you. That's not the case. I apologize if you're for this, but I'm actually back. No, I'm just kidding. The final session will be the essence of this conference, the recommendations that will be put into a form and submitted to the Council of Federal Councillor Johannes Schneider-Ammann on the 8th of May. So I would welcome on stage the four representatives of the breakout sessions: Marcel Tanner, Jean-Jacques Aubert, Claudia Panzero, you're already here, and Stefano Santinelli. Welcome. So are these switched on? Yes, they are not. Now they are. Prego. Okay, so I would go around, starting perhaps ladies first with Claudia. You were responsible for the digitalization and creativity. Is that correct? Yes. What were the outcomes of this?
We had a workshop with Federica Capasso and Rino Vicini, Yves Bachmann, Carla Lamesic. They were from the Olympics and Schweizer Jugend forscht. And we discussed on creativity. We then split up in 3 groups and had some ideation what is needed to be more creative in research and innovation. And what came out is as follows. We need more failure as a part of learning.
Can I hold this for you?
Oh yes, I held it.
Should we show it to the audience? Do you want to see it? Can you read this?
Not very beautiful writing from my part, but
I'm sorry for
we thought that our panelists and our groups thought that failure should be much more part of researching and learning. And they were in favor of more design thinking, of problem solving, of realize during problem solving how an equation works or how a methodology could be developed. And Mr. Capasso highlighted also that clarity in papers helps a lot, also to explain to a broad public what science is doing. So go beyond of creativity, relate to the public, feel what they think, and explain for the general public what science is doing. Then there was an interesting idea about bottom-up funding. So they thought maybe 100 students could come together as a committee and judge on papers which could be funded and one would be funded. And this would not be a board on some foundation or grant-giving organization, but really bottom-up by the researchers themselves. Then we talked a lot about memorizing knowledge and active learning, and they agreed that both has its place, but the students thought, and the participants also of our room mostly thought that there should be more freedom in the memorizing part. So you could also learn on the train in Ticino instead of going to lectures.
Thank you, Claudia. Maybe on a personal note, is there any of these, or all of these recommendations, will they actually find a way to Schneider-Ammann in a concrete form on which he can actually take action, or his subordinates, of course, can take concrete action? Let's say, for instance, active learning, which means retraining everybody.
I
Do you think so?
Active learning and these bottom-up processes and failure will be very interesting for Mr. Schneider-Ammann. And I also saw, like, as Katharina from the Swiss National Science Foundations took the pictures from the ideas, so it will go also to National Science Foundation, and we hope they will discuss it at least. What I forgot to tell is that they said it's too late to start at university. It should be starting at primary school about design thinking, about workshops, about having ideas, because children have a lot of curiosity, and we should foster this curiosity on an early age and let it happen and not stop it when kids come to kindergarten.
Excellent. Great. Fine. Thank you. Moving on, Stefano Santinelli, your session was digitalization and the economy, so let's hear it from you.
Thank you. So we came up with 4 different recommendations, which I don't know if they're good for Schneider-Ammann, but we had fun and a very interesting discussion. So the first one is the acknowledgement that we are living and working in a very volatile world. Everybody of us will have a skill or has skills that will be obsolete in 3 to 5 years, and everybody of us will work over a lifetime in 4 or 5 different companies. So we don't need a very rigid system. We need continuous learning and a continuous learning system that is compatible between work, education, and personal life, so that the employer, so the enterprises support the continuous learning, and the education system is framed in such a way that it's possible to maybe work 1 year and then work to learn 1 year and then work 3 years and then learn another year and then work another 4 years and so on. The second recommendation is that today we live in silos. There is the economy that throws some requirements to education, and education asks for funding to the states, and this is not sustainable because it takes too long. Digitalization means living in a very fast world. There is a lot of speed, so economy and education system and state have to work together, but really together, to teach and train the right things at the right time, and have a really move in synchronous speed and not in waves of, I plan 5 years ahead, which skills will be needed, and the state will take another 10 years to offer the skills on the market. This is not going to work. So work much more together and integrate and have this open dialogue between economy and education. The third, we discussed also about, is it more important to teach skills, to teach knowledge, or to teach a way of thinking? And we thought that Mr. Capasso, in his keynote today, showed the perfect way. So it's important to teach knowledge and so on, but to teach it in a way that you develop skills. And the skills we thought it was important is really the way of thinking, frame the right problem solving, complex problem solving. So it's not, teach skills or teach knowledge, it's both. Teach knowledge in the way you develop the right skills in the classroom. So thank you, Mr. Capasso, for giving us the Quadratur von Kreis. And the fourth, it's more around, since everything is going so fast, it's so volatile, we still have people, we still have the society, individual people and citizens that have not only work, but also have a life. So it's very important to have a frame condition, condizioni quadro, that where the system is impossible. It's possible. Blended learning, continuous learning, and having the awareness to activate personal responsibility of the people, that they understand and they take ownership, empowerment to develop their career, their life, their skills, and that we have these frame conditions of the state that support this long life learning and blended learning.
Very good. So framework conditions, that's actually something that could lead into legislation. Framework conditions, an incentive to the industry or to companies, to businesses to give the time or allow their employees to train themselves in further education. Continuing, that's something we can do? Huh?
Absolutely.
It's a question of who's paying, right?
Yeah, it's a question of who's paying, but I think the interesting thing was the acknowledgement on the awareness that it has to go together, the education system, the companies, and the state, because everybody has the same interest, this lifelong learning. Everybody knows that this is important and there is a way to go. So,
okay. This is what Peter Voser was saying this morning. Very good. There's microphones over here. Jean-Jacques Aubert. So digitization in the society. What were the outcomes of your session?
Okay, thank you. We had 2 papers which were actually kind of thematically linked. One about aging society, the other one about a pilot project conducted here in the Canton Ticino about mapping defibrillators, the impact of big data on rapid response in case of emergency. And we came up with a couple of suggestions, of recommendations. One is the need to standardize and to agree on measurements, indicators, and metrics in order to be able to use the data coming from elsewhere and speak the same language. The second recommendation was about testing project on a small scale. Well, this was the case, for instance, with the pilot project in Canton Ticino, but it's also the case, for instance, for Aging Society, where we go through what we call living labs, and it allows to study maybe in-depth situations that might be comparable but still diversified, and after expand the field of implementation. And thirdly, the recommendation bears on open data and the idea that data is collected very often at the cost of taxpayers, but also at the cost of private contributors, should be made available and should be usable and reusable and even reappropriated. Sometimes in varied conditions, for instance, with added noise or blurred conditions in order to protect privacy and also elements that might be used for commercial profit rather than for the initial goal of the data collectors.
Thank you very much. This is very interesting. And finally, Marcel Tanner on digitization and education.
Thank you very much. We had 3 injections to start with, coming all from the Ticino in a way. That was very nice, local context, going into Switzerland and to the global level. That was wonderful. So it was Fabio Merlini, Alberto Piatti, and Furio Bednard who made these injections. That stimulated our group. And the first point, not yet a recommendation, is that we actually said, because we are just above the Gornaredo Stadium, the first half of the match in digitalization we have lost because we were talking too much still, this high-level, low-content business, in where we are just talk and talk and talk about digitalization, and we should really make it up now for the second half to make the winning goals, and this is particularly important in education. Then the second point, actually, we were realizing that the group that was there, it was a full room, but we were too much on the dinosaur side. And those who are actually growing up with the real already inherited digitalization culture, the young ones were not there. And one cannot move ahead and make recommendations, except the recommendations that those who have to live this world should actually also be part in the way how we actually go forward. The third one was structuring. It was very interesting that through the injections, we got better clarity on where we should also concentrate before I come to the recommendations. It was very clear that we have to look at skills in education. So one are technical skills, how you bring in technical skills. And that's different. That's the youth factor is very important. We grow up by this learning by doing type of thing and selective versus those who actually where digitalization is in nearly every moment of their life a reality and is part of their genome. And then there comes, of course, the skills, the learning skills, how we learn. And here we actually follow without going to the other groups. Of course, we are going for the lifelong learning. And of course, we started already at the kindergarten. But that doesn't matter. But the main observation was that this should be really separated in the discussions from where we just talk about technical skills versus also how we learn what we got as the basic introduction today also in the discussion with the students. And I think this one needs more coherence. That's the first recommendation. We need coherence in these approaches and not suddenly discovers that now ETH also does problem-based learning while others have done it already at primary school, where learning on the object is already a tradition since 20 years. And this coherence as framework conditions seem for us very important, so that the education process is not a fragmentation of the society, but is really a continuation, so that you can really talk about lifelong learning. The other thing is what we also saw is that research, not just blue sky anything, but research should accompany these processes. So it's didactical research, as well as research on innovative tools, as I come to that one. And that actually this research process should have the weight, if we consider this as a societal challenge, digitalization, it should also have its weight in science. And we should not only just hope that blue sky research is done, that will be done, but in addition to that, also that we do, that's also research, proper validation. We have too many approaches in digitalization that are not properly validated. Everybody has an app, a technology, and they say that's the hottest thing on earth, but it's just hot, but it is not creating anything. And I think this science component is for Katharina. This is very important for us, that this is also inherited, that this innovation as well as validation makes successful application. And it's very important for educational processes that this comes in. Then comes the tool level. Of course, we favor that we have a lot of new tools. And we, of course, support the emphasis on innovation. But not the emphasis on the innovation that one just says, yeah, we need innovation in Switzerland, as our federal councillor says, must be more specific. And not just these blurred things and the empty shells of words, but really content. Because in innovation, you then bring the elements together. When, for instance, you take the robot that you use in teaching and training processes, that is a totally new way of creating this robot as an innovation. But the validation in educational processes on how this robot not replaces, but gives another position to the teacher and facilitator, that's maybe something to be picked up on the science side as well as on frameworks condition. And the last part, we should actually stop of thinking about here is the private sector, the enterprises, here is the public sector. That's old, outdated way. This social tissue of our society can only be made by working together in partnership, not the one directing the other one what to do, but it is this creative partnership. And for instance, in education, pertinent examples were mentioned, what ABB does with, in their apprenticeship training, what Audi does. Furio was actually underlying this. And I think these elements must come into this continuous process. And so our emphasis is really the framework conditions and where the science is also part of it.
Thank you very much. You put a lot of stuff on the table there. Very good. Lots of food for thought. But overall, are you confident about the future with some adjustments, obviously? But overall, you're confident?
Not some adjustments.
Not so much?
Major adjustments. Yeah. And in the spirit of Peter Moser, not revolution, but a little
evolution.
bit an accelerated evolution, you see?
Okay, because
I think this is something which, I mean, which we sometimes underestimate what it means to move rapidly. Stop all these conferences and these frameworks and strategies and all these, how this crap is all called. Take the concrete examples and move them forward in order to really move and make a difference. And I think I said this many times, mutual learning for change is the issue. It's not to have overly paid consultants that do actually framework papers, but put those people who have to solve the problem together in order to move. That's what is an accelerated evolution, but not our fragmentation-based, consultancy-based way on societal development. That is maybe the thing how we should move, and then we make a difference.
Thank you very much. I have nothing to add to that. So if there are no other comments, maybe from the audience, is anybody wants to say something before we wrap it up? Or yes, please, go ahead. So these recommendations are going to the name of the academies? No, they're going to the...
In the name of...
In the name, yes.
So I really strongly recommend that there is some quality control on these recommendations before they go to whoever it is, because some of them might disqualify the others.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Okay. Thank you, guys. Oh yes, sorry, I didn't see you. Sorry.
I just, if I have a minute,
Yes?
I miss our teachers, kindergarten teachers, for example. Like, I just note that most teachers in Switzerland have not a remote idea about how the brain works. And how can you teach a brain if you don't know how it works? And the brain basically can't function, and we can't be creative, we can't think if we don't use the body as well. And we have seen with Professor Cabasso, when he was thinking harder, he was moving more. And when he was telling about stuff that he probably already told 100 times, he was rather, well, not moving, he was rather static. And this is a very important thing to realize, that the brain is not a computer and that it needs to be activated through every sense we have. If a child doesn't learn to look with the weak eye until he's 5, he will be blind on that eye for the rest of his life, even though the eye is working. So we really need to actively foster differentiation of activation of all those sub-elements in our brains, which are eventually activated through activity. So let's go out, dance, laugh, music, whatever, theater. That's what's important for kids. And the teachers should know what they're dealing with.
I think you just can answer this. We were a bit short with these summaries, because we were told to be short. Our group has discussed this and hinted at that, not only, but also made very concrete points on that one. In my maybe sloppy sentence of this continuous project, object-related, in a way we have very clearly said we should also see at which place the digitalization is, but at which place also the teacher is, the facilitators, whatever you want to call them, and that it needs face-to-face interactions, to stimulations like that. We also complained that people nowadays only look at screens instead of into people's eyes, which is a big misery of our time. And actually we were hinting at that, so this may be too short and we apologize for that. And I think also in creativity you have touched on that.
Yes, and we spoke a lot about kindergarten also on the 11th of April, the first day of our Digitale, so we are very conscious of it, but thank you for mentioning it. It's really where education starts. Or before? Okay, before kindergarten. We will note this as well. Thank you so much. Okay.
Let's wrap it up. Thank you again. Claudia, you should stay on stage. I'm stepping off the stage, and I invite Maurice Campagna to wrap it up with Claudia.
Can you hear me? Everybody can hear me? Just 2 minutes. Basically, I think I don't need to wrap up two special things. I will just say that thank you to all panelists that they have worked hard this afternoon to provide what we just heard. To all the contributors during the breakout sessions, I followed all of them, frankly, besides activity, and I have seen a lot of very interesting discussion and contributions. Thank you to the contributors and to all of you for providing the discussion. Okay, so there is not much that I can add. I think we had 3 very dense days, including today, and basically we can say that, you know, when make sure that everybody is on board, nobody is left behind. We know that by heart, Claudia. It's our principle. It was told many times in Bern, and I would say, I will just add, take for ourselves empowerment to be important, empowerment to everywhere. take your destiny in your hands, or otherwise somebody will steal. This this was 1972 by labs, and it used to become General Electric in the 80s, okay? It is still valid today. So thank you very much for participating to this workshop, to this symposium and to the workshops. I think we can be very happy for what we have received, Claudia, and therefore my conclusion is we look in a way motivated for the future. Thank you again.
From my side, I recall that we heard education, 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 and questions, many questions, active learning, a lot of passion, curiosity, fostering curiosity at all age, continuous learning, and coordination between economy, the state, and the education system. And a lot of bottom-up. It's really wonderful how in Switzerland things can happen bottom-up. And sometimes you just have an idea. And we came to Ticino, we spoke to several organizations, and the outcome was a youth parliament organized by Giovanni Pellegri and Cristina Morisoli. We had these young people discussing for 2 whole days on how they would like to change the education system, and we heard what they thought about it. We had breakout sessions, we had a special day with teachers from kindergarten to university, and next time we will also think about pre-kindergarten. And it was really fascinating. We were in Bern and they were in Ticino, and we started to dialogue, and it was a wonderful experiment and a huge experience, and I would really like to thank all of you who were being part of this dialogue. I would like to thank to my team. I would like to thank to our moderator, Dimitri Lorencet. I would like to thank Searvision. They put online their first YouTube video of the first day. Thank you so much. Everything worked well, and they had some insight where to improve. So don't be afraid of failure. That was also said in our discussion on creativity. Be courageous and go on. And I would like to thank to the Swiss Academies of Arts and Science and their members. All our members had guests here. We had help from different team of different academies and units of our association. Thank you so much. At this point, I also would like to thank Maurice Campagna. He was our president with a lot of ideas, with a lot of activity, with a lot of imagination, and he really did well. Thank you so much. And he will give the scepter at the end of April to a new president, and that's why we would like to thank him so much, and please also his wife could come on stage, because she was a really fantastic person. The first thing I heard about our president was an interview telling that he moved 15 times and his wife was always coming with him. And she was with us also with the academies in the background helping us. Thank you so much, Rosanna. Thank you, Maurice. And our gift has 2 parts. So we thought if our president is not president anymore, he won't sit down on a chair. It's not the type. He will have other activities. So if you want to sit down, have a ball to sit down. Very nice. And on the other hand, we invite you to go where the crystals are and the blue water and the energy. You will go to Grimsel for a weekend and discover where science for Maurice had its roots when he saw crystals and stones and magnetism when he was a high school student. So please enjoy and have a nice weekend. And thank you so much for everything.
Thank you, Claudia.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Very kind of you.
Now, we have to admit that I have never given flowers to anybody, but Claudia needs one. And this is just a thank you for Claudia for working very hard with me since November, we had a very tough time to make sure that this symposium would convert together with our people here in Ticino. Thank you again.
Thank you so much. This was really the perfect surprise because thank you so much and for working so well together. Thanks a lot.
The afternoon is closed. Have a nice day there.
Yeah, I have one last wish, and maybe I can have it.
Okay, sure.
And so we had a saying in the beginning that pick up the ball and pass it on, solution emerging teamworks. And we have a lot of balls behind, and we should do as the children, as the young people did at the Cantonal Palace in Bellinzona, and really throw up the ball and pass it on and memorize that we started something. Of course, we don't have to have conferences every year, but in 4 years' time, I would like to meet you to tell us about the results. So 1, 2, 3.
Pass the ball.
Thank you very much. The conference is closed and the apéro is open. This is for you as well. Okay.